Hi, how you doing everyone? I'm Ebenezer Don, developer advocate for web and JavaScript, and today we're going to be learning how to build a blog with Next.js and MDX. What's Next.js? What's MDX? Well, I have answers to that in this video, so join me and let's learn by building. Alright, now we're going to learn Next.js and MDX by building a blog, and right here is the blog we would have built at the end of this video. I have functions for beginners. This is just different blog posts, and I can click on any of them and that takes me to the post page. So right here we have functions for beginners, and notice this is a blog about functions. We'll learn what functions are, how to write functions, and how to use them. Now this blog post was written in Markdown, MDX. MDX is Markdown with JSX. So Markdown where we can write JSX in it. This is a Markdown subheading. We just use a # subheading in a blog post. So notice the difference right now. This subheading was written with the ###, just like you would in any Markdown file. And right here we have a code block inside of a Markdown file. So that's JSX inside of a Markdown file with syntax highlighting. So I'm going to show you how this was done in a bit. This is a code block, and right here also we have another component, click me. So hey, I'm using the component inside of my Markdown file, and look at that, click me. You clicked me, and that's the Markdown file. We also have the bio page. I can click on this bio page and that takes me to the bio. I'm Ebenezer Don's bio here. Now when you start building this with me, please change this to your name. That's what I want. I want this to be your blog, not my blog. So if your name is Jake, that should be Jake something, or Jane, I'm Jane Butters, and all that. Now this is the Markdown file for each of our posts. So right here I have this functions for beginners.mdx. So that's the MDX file, which contains a Markdown code. And right here we have the Markdown code, and this is a div right here. This is a blog post about strong functions. So we are using JSX, and this is a Markdown subheading. So we're using this, and then this is the code block you saw, which had syntax highlighting, and we're using the syntax highlighter component for that. Language is JavaScript. And don't worry if you're seeing too much code right now that you may not understand. We're going to do this together. So we're going to build this blog from scratch. Now, one really good thing about Next.js is that it pre-renders every page. So when we build this Next.js app right now, it's going to pre-render every page, every of our HTML page. Right here you can see this blog, and all the pages right now, functions for beginners, solid.js, how to set up Tailwind CSS, introduction to Python, all of them are from this slug.js file. Don't worry, remember I said I'm going to show you how to do this with me. And so from this file, we're able to generate all these other pages, and that happens on build. So when we build our Next.js application, Next.js helps us pre-render all these pages, that it generates all these pages from our JavaScript code. And then when we open up our page application in the browser, we already have those pages there. When we click on functions for beginners, we're getting that page itself from the server instead of having a JavaScript do it for us on the client. And one really cool thing, another really cool thing you notice about Next.js apps is that it's difficult to tell that it's not client-side rendered, because in a Next.js application the pages respond immediately. So we click on how to set up Tailwind CSS and we see that page immediately. We don't see a loading bar. It's not trying to load when we click on it. So we already have that page, so you wouldn't even know that it's not client-side rendered or client-side generated. And that's because Next.js helps us prefetch these pages. So any link right now that Next.js can see in the viewport, Next.js helps us prefetch that page so that whenever we click on it, it's already there waiting for us. So Next.js just gives us that page, and that's amazing. All this work was done with minimal effort from us, so we did not have to start handling the under the hood setting for prefetching or for rendering the HTML pages and all that. Next.js helps us handle all this stuff. It's really amazing. We're going to start building this right now, so stay with me. All right, now to create a new Next app, we'll need npx. So make sure you have Node.js installed. I'm already assuming you know what Node.js is, that have Node.js installed and you've worked with React before. So we have this right now, npx, and then create Next app and the name of our app. So this is Next.js, MDX, and blog for blog. Need to install the following packages and Y for OK. And we're done. All right, now that that's installed, let's cd into Next.js MDX blog. And right here we can now run npm run dev. Look at that right here, started server on localhost 3000. And let's see localhost 3000 on a browser. So look at that. Welcome to Next.js. Get started by editing pages/index.js. And the next thing we want to do is open up Next.js on a IDE or code editor. I'm using a WebStorm for this tutorial. All right, now I have my Next.js projects open in WebStorm. Let me take you through the project structure so you see what these different folders mean. Right here we have the .next folder. This contains this is where Next.js dumps whatever Next.js gets from building our application. So that goes into the .next directory. So there's been a couple of times where looks like something is wrong with my project. I'm making a change and I'm not really seeing it happen on the browser. What I do in those few times is I come over to the Next.js folder, I delete it, and then I rebuild or restart my Next.js app, and then it rebuilds, gives me that .next folder again, and everything starts working well. And this is where we have the node modules. I shouldn't tell you about node modules, and this is for pages. Now, the way Next.js handles routing is unlike the normal create React app. For routing right here, every page we want goes inside the pages directory. So right inside of the pages directory, if I come here and create a new file named bio.js, I should just add this to Git. When we open up our application or our web page, and then we go to localhost 3000 or the base URL /bio.js, we get whatever we put in here. So that's the way Next.js handles routing. You want to add a new page, you just put it right here inside of pages. You can also have folders inside of pages, so we're going to do this together. Like we have the the API folder where we can write APIs for our Next.js app, and we're not going to be using these for our project, so we can just go ahead and delete it right now. But before we delete it, I wanted to show you that deleted anyway. Before we delete it, I wanted to show you that we can have directories inside of here. So I can have blog inside of this pages directory, and then I can have first post. So this is first post.js, and if you come to my base URL, my application, that's localhost 3000 or whatever the base URL is, /blog/first post, you're going to see whatever I put inside here. So that's the way Next.js handles routing. So that's what we have right here, pages. And we have the index.js file. So index is like if you've worked with, remember, I'm already assuming that you have experience with React. So if we have a folder and we have index.js, that means if I create a folder named index.js inside of this blog, when we come over to /blog, so just my base URL /blog, whatever I put inside of this index.js file is what the Next.js is going to give me, what my web browser is going to give me. And then if I go to /first post, I'm going to see what I put inside of first post. So /blog/first post gives me what I put inside of first post.js, and just /blog gives me what I put inside of the index.js file. Do you get that? And we have this right here, index.js for /pages. Remember, /pages, we don't have /pages in our Next.js app. We just have /whatever is inside of pages. So if we have the page URL /blog, we get blog, /bio, we get bio. So if we have the index.js, that means that this index.js is what we see. That's what we see in our base app. Pages /index.js, this is what we see in our base URL. So we open up our application and this is what we see, index.js file. That's why you have this right here, create next app, welcome to Next.js, and all that and all that. So that's it for the routing, index.js and pages in Next.js. So let's say you want to put a lot of things inside of this base directory. So this base Next.js MDX blog directory, you want to put different things inside of it, and you want to now separate pages and put it inside an src directory. So we usually have the src directory in these applications. So you can come over here and create an src directory, and when you create that src directory, you can take your pages folder and put it right inside of the src directory. And now Next.js is going to know that this is where you have your pages. Back to npm run dev. So right here, so you go back to your Next.js app and reload your web page and reload. Next.js is going to know that you've moved pages to the src folder, and it's going to start handling all your pages from src folder. So you shouldn't have pages inside of src folder and pages outside of src folder. If you're moving it to the src folder, everything has to be inside of the src folder. And we have the styles right here, which contains the globals.scss file and the home.module.scss file. So these are the styles for our Next.js app. Then we have the ESLints rc.json file, gitignore file, the Next.js config.json file, where we can add extra configurations for Next.js app inside of the next.config.js file. So right now, the default route system for Next.js is that Next.js comes to the src folder or looks for the pages directory and then gives us all the files inside of the pages directory as pages. Now, if we don't want that, if we don't want this default routing structure, we can add a config right inside of this next.config.js file to tell Next.js that no, we don't want your default routing structure. We want to do our own routing ourselves. So you do that inside of the next.config.js file. And for that setting in particular, that configuration in particular, that's the use file system public route. So right here, and that should be false. And that's the config. Right now, when we do this, Next.js is not going to recognize the pages routing structure anymore. Remember, you make changes like this, you have to run dev again. And that's it for the next.config.js file. And we have the package.json file, the readme.md file. This is it for our file structure. Now let's set up Bootstrap for styling our blog. Hey, all right, to set up Bootstrap in our application, we use the Bootstrap CDN. So let's convert to the _app.js file. And right inside of this file, remember, this is where we have our application layout. So this file is going to apply to every other file in our app. And look at it right here online. When you see that we have this blue line from WebStorm, which indicates a change. And that's because, remember, we moved our application, we structured the application inside of the src folder, and that has automatically updated the import statement. So right here on line 3, we want to return this inside of the parentheses so that we can add other JSX code. And I'm going to wrap this quickly inside of this empty fragment right here, and I have that on line 6. And now I can go ahead and bring in the head component. So inside of this head component is where we want to put in the link tag. Remember, if you've worked with React.js before, you have the public /index.html file, and if you want to bring in something like CDNs, you put that inside of the head tag. So with Next.js, Next.js has this head component, the head tag from Next.js. And look at right here on line 2, we have import head from next/document. Actually, what we want is import head from next/head and not next/document. And right here we have the head tag, and we can go ahead to put in the title tag right here, and let's name this Next and MDX blog. And right here we have a title tag. The next one we need is the link tag. So I'm just going to quickly take the link CDN tag and bring that here. So link tag with CDN link, and I'm going to paste that on line 9. And this is what we have here for our Bootstrap CDN link. Yeah, right there on line 9 to line 11. So we can save this. And what else do we need? So now we have Bootstrap set up. We can go ahead and wrap everything after head inside of the container class. So the Bootstrap container class right here, and let's have this as container. And look at what we have here on line 9. If we hover on this, you see that WebStorm is telling us, hey, you can download this library so that you get the auto suggestions. So right now we have this container, but this suggestion is coming from the look at this right here, container. This suggestion is coming from the style/home.model.css file, not Bootstrap. That's the default styling with Next.js, but we can download this. So if we want to use like other Bootstrap styles, like maybe BG, we get the auto suggestions from Bootstrap. So let's hover on this and then hit the download library link. And when this is downloaded, we want to hit the shift key twice, go back to library, and use JavaScript library right here, and let's click on Bootstrap. Now you can see that we have the auto import. So BG, the auto suggestions, BG body, BG dark, BG danger, BG info, and all that. Remember, you hit the shift key twice, type library, just in case. Sometimes this is automatically given to you if you've not set up, if you've not downloaded the Bootstrap library before. You get this automatically. You don't need to use you don't need to configure the library anymore. You just, once you hit the download button right here, you get your auto suggestions. But if you don't get it, hit the shift key twice and type library. When you type library, you save this, you use JavaScript library option, and you see I have Bootstrap downloaded and Dex downloaded. So you click, you check Bootstrap, and you have the auto suggestions. So BG right here, we have all the BG suggestions from Bootstrap, and container right here, we have container from Bootstrap, and that's it. So the next thing we want to do is want to wrap this. We want to take this component and page props. This represents all our Next.js pages, and we want to put this inside of the container div. And we need the nav component next, but we've not created that. Before we create the nav component, let's wrap this pages component inside of the main tag, put that right here, and look at this. Let's write this right here, nav component here, and we can comment this out with command and slash, and we have that right there. Now the next we want to do is create a nav component. To do that, we'll go back to the project explorer, and inside of our src folder, let's create a new directory named components. And inside of components is where we want to create a nav.jsx file. So this is nav.jsx. Inside of a nav.jsx file in WebStorm, we're going to type rsc to create a stateless component right there. And that's done for us. We have a component. And what do we need next? So we need links in our component. Next.js has this link tag. You see similar thing when working with React, but we don't need line 1 right here. So we're just going to come over to line 1 and import link from next/link. And now we need our link tags because we want to be able to navigate to the bio and back to the home section where we have the blog post. So right here, let's wrap this in the nav tag instead of a div tag. And inside of a nav tag, we have class name, and this is as nav from Bootstrap. And then I want to go with p-3 for padding, and then border bottom. So this is from Bootstrap. These are Bootstrap classes. And then we have a link tag and href right here. So this is to navigate back home, and this should be href of slash. So just slash to take us to the base URL. So pass href right here. And we're using pass href because we want to have a tag inside of the link tag. So we want to pass href over to the h2 tag right here. So this is h2 right here. And h2 has a class name of pointer. Pointer right here is not from Bootstrap. Pointer just means that when I hover on this particular link, you change the mouse cursor to pointer, because Next.js link tag doesn't automatically come with that CSS styling. So I'm going to create the CSS class style.pointer inside of our style file in a bit. So we have pointer right here, and I'm going to write Ebenezer Dawn. And let's come over to projects. And let's see, we want to come over to the styles and then globals.css. And right here, I'm just going to have the pointer and cursor as pointer. So when I put this class on any element, then you hover on that element, the cursor is going to change to pointer. So we have pointer right here, and that's it. So we're going to be able to use any class to style inside of this globals.css file in any of our components. So right here I have pointer, and all I need to do is come over to the nav.jsx file, and on line 7 I have class name as pointer. So this is wrapped inside of the double quotes, and I have Ebenezer Dawn right here. So this is my first link, and the next link I want is the bio link. So the link for the bio, I'm just gonna duplicate this, and right here I have /bio instead of just slash. And on line 11 we're gonna write bio instead of Ebenezer Dawn. So bio right here. And for class name, we have ms5 from Bootstrap for margin, and we have the lead for text. We have my auto, and these are just Bootstrap classes. You don't need to worry yourself so much about them. We're focusing on learning Next.js right now. And I have my nav component. So this is my nav component right here. We can now go back to the _app.js file, and right on line 14, let's bring in a nav component. So this is nav for nav, and I can close this. Is this automatically imported for me? No. Okay, so I just need to click insert import nav, and right there we have a nav component. By the way, on line 2, you see that we have an error message right here. Element is not exported. That's because the head tag that was initially imported from us was from next/documents, and this will be correct. But when we're importing from next/head, this has to be done directly. So this is import head from next/head, and that's fixed. Now we can go ahead and see what our application looks like. Remember, you need to come here to the npm section if you're using WebStorm, and then click on this dev key, and that should run your application. If not, you go back to your terminal and npm run dev, and that should run your application. Now let's go back to the browser and see what we have so far. And look at it right here. We have welcome to Next.js. Get started by editing pages/index.js. And remember, a cursor pointer, you hover on this and then you get to see the cursor pointer. Next, let's see how to create pages in Next.js. So we're going to be creating a bio page. Back to WebStorm, and inside of the bio.js file, remember, if you're using WebStorm RSC, and you have your stateless component right there, and we don't need line 1, so we're going to take that out, and we have bio right here, and let's give this class name of empty for margin top -3, And this is going to be a very simple bio. So P right here, class name as MC-3, and we need another P tag, so I'm going to duplicate this. All right, so inside of the first P tag we have I'm Ebenezer done right here. So I'm Ebenezer done right here. Remember, you got to change this to your own name. Inside of the second P tag we have Ebenezer Don's bio. I want you to use this as just a base template for building your blog. So that means that when you start building this application, you're going to make it a full-fledged blog. Give us a proper bio, you know, do incredible designs, add content to your bio and all that. But for now, this is all we're going to get. Now you can see that we have this red line wherever we have this apostrophe symbol, so right here. And when we hover on this, we have this error message right here. So ESLint, this apostrophe symbol can be replaced with these HTML entities. So this prevents invalid characters from appearing in a markup file. Now let's take this one and want to use that in place of the apostrophe mark right there. So this HTML entity is going to be replaced with the apostrophe mark when we open up our web page. And let's do the same thing on line 5 and right here. So I'm Ebenezer Don's bio right here. So we save that. We can come over to our web page, click on the bio link, and look at that. I'm Ebenezer Don's bio here. For the styling on line 4, let's update this. So instead of P with class name of MT4, we have display 4 from Bootstrap, and we have text center. So we want to center this, and we use the center class from Bootstrap, and that should be all for the first one. And for the second P tag, we have just text center. So text center right here. We save that, and here's what we have. I'm Ebenezer Don's bio here. So just looks sleek, neat, and back to the home page. Hey, all right, now what we're going to do next is bring in the MDX files for a blog post. I've already created a GitHub repository for this file, so we don't have to start writing everything from scratch. What we're going to do is simply come over to this repository. I'll leave the link in the description of this video, and go to code and download zip, and that's it. So you can then take your post folder, so this post directory with all of the components, and you can open up any MDX file right here. You see the content. So this is the post directory with all of its files. You take that directory and then you come over to your application, and inside of the rshousing folder, let's paste the post directory. So we're going to paste that right here, and look at that, we have a post. So I can close all these other directories and look at this. So posts, and we have functions for beginners.mdx, solid.js for beginners, tailwind setup.mdx, variables in python.mdx, and these are the posts. So right here we have plugin support.mdx files found, and let's ignore this extension right now. So this is our .mdx file. And what we have from line 1 to line 7 is called the front matter, where we have like it's going to be like an object value pair when we're bringing in the content from our MDX file and we're putting it in our JSX code. So in our blog post, when we go over to the components part and the pages part, what we are taking from here, we're going to have this front matter part, and this is going to be, remember, in an object format where we have the key as title and value as function for beginners, date as August 4, 2021, description as the key, and value, learn how to create and use functions and all that. So we'll be able to take this so that we can then use them when displaying content in our blog post. And right here on line 9 to line 12, you can see that we have a div tag. So this is an MDX file, this is a Markdown file, but we can put in HTML tags instead of our Markdown file. And not just that, we also have this React components. So this is a syntax highlighter which we are using to highlight our code. Now if you come over to the finished application and you click on any of the blog posts, functions for beginners for example, you see that this code block right here is highlighted. So const stuff and all that. So we have syntax highlighting, and that's what we're using the syntax highlighter component for right here. So we wrap our code block inside of the syntax highlighter component, and that's it. So I'm going to show you how to achieve this. We have the React component inside of a Markdown file. We have the normal HTML tags, the BR tag inside of a Markdown file, and we also have this right here. So the way we can easily structure headings in our Markdown files, the 3 pound symbols, this is a Markdown subheading. We just use a hash the pound symbol head subheading in a blog post and all that. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So there's functions for beginners, there's a markdown subheading, and that's it. MDX, markdown, JSX as one. So it makes writing blog posts really easy. We can easily put JavaScript inside of our blog posts, JSX inside of our blog posts, and all that. And that's what we're going to be doing. So right now we have our post. The next thing we want to do is build our blog's homepage. And to do that, we'll come back to the pages directory and the index.js file. So this is the base URL. When we convert to the base URL of our application, this is what we're going to see: pages/index.js. Whatever we have here is what we're going to see. And right now, if we come to localhost 3000, you can see welcome to Next.js, and this is what we have right here. So what we're going to do first of all is remove everything here. So let's just take away everything from, I think basically everything. We should just take away everything and leave just the divs there. So you can see right here on line 3, first of all, we're importing styles from this style/home.module.cs. So you can write style files for pages. Right here we have home.module.css, and if you want a style file for the bio page, we have bio.module.css and all that. And then you can go over to the page for that particular style file, import the style file, and you can use it like this. So styles.container is going to give you the container class right here on line 1. So right now that we don't need this, we can go ahead and delete it, by the way. So let's delete this, and WebStorm is warning us that this is being used, but we'll delete anyway because we want to remove it from line 3, and we also want to remove line 1 and 2 right now so that we can see clearly what we're doing. So right here on line 2 we have export default function and home, and that's what we have right now. We can go ahead and remove the styles of container class right here, and we want to use Bootstrap instead, since we've set up Bootstrap already. So empty-5 for margin top. And before we do any other thing, let's see how we can fetch data in Next.js. Now we need to fetch data in Next.js because we need to fetch the data from our post directory. So we need to get these different posts, the MDX files, functions for beginners, Solid.js for beginners, and all that. We need to get that and bring that into the homepage. And this is the same thing if you want to fetch data from an API outside of your application. It's still the same way you're going to do it. So we're going to export a function from Next.js, and that's export const get static props. So this is get static props right here, and Next.js is going to be expecting this export. Now in Next.js we can use the get static props method to fetch data at build time. So while application is building, this get static props function is going to be run, and then Next.js is going to use that to fetch data, get all the data for us during build, and then use that in our application. So this means that when we build our app, Next.js is going to run the get static props method, take the data from it, pass it to our components as props, and then use that to generate the page. So what I mean is this: if I come over to line 2, I have this post props right here, and this is going to contain the data for our post. I can come here and map through the post and then display the post data for the different blog posts we have. But to get this post prop, to be able to access this post prop, we need to supply that post prop from the get static props method right here on line 9. Now to do this, we're just going to use the Node.js fs.readDirSync method. So this const files equal to fs.read dir, so read and then dir and then sync, and we have path.join and the directory right here as post. Let's import fs. So we're going to import fs from fs. So this is from Node.js, and fs from fs. This is not peculiar to Next.js. This is because we want to work with file paths. We want to work with files inside of our application. So we are just using this to bring the files. Now, if we want to make an API call, instead of fs.readDirSync and all that, we can use the fetch API or any other means of making API requests. So we can do that right here. And this is just to get our data, remember. So right here, we need src and then post. So what this means is we're going to come to our root directory, and then we're going to go over to the src directory, so /src and then /post, and then we have all our posts. Now we have our files. The next thing we're going to do is create a post variable. So let's come over to line 13, and const post is equal to files.map, and let's get a different individual posts, files.map, and then file name. And for each file name we have this, so markdown with meta, and that's equal to fs.read file sync right now. So we want to read the files. Remember, the first one, read DirSync, is to read the directory, and the next one, we want to read the file, get the content from the file. And we have path.join, and that's we started from src, and we have posts, and we have the file name. So /src/post/ file name, and right here we want UTF-8 as a character encoding. When we hover on this, you see that we have an error because we are missing import statement. And let's insert import as path from path, and that's it. So we have a path right there. Now the next one, look at this. On line 13, we're getting a file name, so we're reading the directory, we're getting all the file names. And on line 15, we're getting the content of the file, so we're reading the content of the file right here. We have markdown with meta right here. Now the next thing we want to do is get the front matter. Remember, if you come over to functions for beginners.mdx, we have this. So we want to get this as key value pair, so as a JavaScript object key value pair, so that we can access .title as functions for beginners .date as August 4 2021 .description .thumbnail URL and all that. So we want to get the front matter, and for that we need a package named gray matter. So what we want to do is import matter from gray matter right here. So import matter from gray matter, and you see that this is not installed, so we need to install this. And for that we can come over to a terminal and run npm install gray matter right here, and that should give us gray matter. Now we can come over to line 18, and we have const data, and that's equal to matter and markdown with meta. So we're getting matter from a markdown file, and let's rename this to front matter. So right here we have front matter right here, and with that we can now go ahead and return our front matter and the slug. So slug here represents the name functions for beginners.mdx, for example. So we want to go over to the blog post functions for beginners in our application. We need to hit the URL localhost 3000 base URL /blog right here, and then /slug, so which is functions -for beginners and all that. So that's what slug represents right here in the index.js file. So our slug right here is the file name. So we're getting, for each file name, this is what we return. Remember, the front matter and then the slug. So for each file name, we have file name.split right here, and the full stop. So we want to take out the .mdx part. So functions for beginners, that's the file name. So split with the full stop, and then let's get the first one. So when you split with the full stop, you're gonna have this. So front matter and slug, that's what we're returning. And this is for post. And now we have our post. The next thing I want to return right here is that post. So remember, this first return statement is for our post. So this is for our array of posts, and now we want to return for get static props, and let's return props right here and posts. Now we have our array of posts as part of the props, and that means that right here in our component, in our home component, we can now access posts, and whatever we have in this post prop is coming from our return statement right here. So the next one we want to do on line 8 is map through post, and then return data for each post. So post.map right here, and we have posts and index, and right here we have this. So we want to put content for each of our posts. So each of them is going to be a link, and then href as /blog/ and then let's append this with post.slug. By the way, this is linked with small letter I instead of capital letter I. We also need to import that. So remember the base URL /blog/ and then the post.slug. So base URL /blog/ functions for beginners, and that's what we have. So this is the post.blog, and we want to pass href. Remember, we're using this because we have other tags inside of our link component. I want to pass href to them. So pass href right here, and for key we're just going to use index right here, and that's it for our link component. Now we want to import link, and to do that we can come over to line 4 and import link right here from next/link. And this is Next.js equivalent of the React single page application routing. So when we are scrolling to application, we open up an application, and anytime Next.js sees the link tag, it's going to prefetch that data, so that when we click on that link, we're not going to have a wait time anymore. It's just going to open up that page for us, and you have the same feel of a single page application, but then this is server-side rendered. It's SSG and all that with Next.js. But whenever Next.js sees this link tag, is going to make this call prefetch that particular link, so that when you click on it, you already have the content and there's no wait time. So it just shows you that content. Now for each of our posts, I'm going to copy the already written JSX code to save time. And this is what we have right here. So we have div, and this is just mainly Bootstrap code, so card, mb3 pointer, and all that, max width. And look at this, that's important. So we have the front matter right here. So post.frontmatter.title, just the same way we have post.slug, which we returned right here. So we have post.frontmatter.title, post.frontmatter.description, and all this is coming from here. So title, date, description, thumbnail, URL tags, and all that. So description, post.frontmatter.date, and we have the image component right here from Next.js also. So we want to import this. We'll come back to line 4 and create a new line, and then import image from next/image, and that's all the import statements we're going to use for now. So that's what we have. Post the front matter or thumbnail URL, and we have the image tag right here. So the Next.js image component is really helpful when it comes to auto optimization. So Next.js is going to help us optimize our image. We're going to provide the default width and height. So width as 500, height as 400. This is necessary when working with the image tag. You need width and height. And we have alt as thumbnail. We have the class right there, slc post.frontmatter.thumbnail URL, and then object feed as cover. So you probably know this from CSS, object feed cover. And we can save this. Let's run our application again and go see what this looks like. Oh, we're running build instead of dev. So this is us running dev right now. So npm run dev, and we have this localhost 3000. We can come over to a browser, reload, and look at that, functions for beginners. Here's an introduction to Solid.js. Here's a short guide on setting up Tailwind CSS. Let's learn about Python variables. For images though, we don't have our images right now. So if you come to functions, .mdx, functions for beginners.mdx, you can see thumbnail URL as /javascript functions thumbnail.jpg. Now I have another GitHub repository for the images, and I'm gonna also leave that in the description of this video. So we're gonna come right here to this URL, and what you want to do is code and download just like before. And remember, we talked about the public directory, so you can come over here and paste your images. Want to click OK, and look at that, we have our images right here. And when we come back to our application, we have our images. So functions for beginners with the image, Solid.js, a beginner's guide, how to set up Tailwind CSS, a simple introduction to Python variables, and all that. And that's it for our homepage. We're almost done, don't worry. So right here we have all for this page could not be found because we've not worked on the individual blog post pages yet. Now let's work on our individual blog page. So a blog page, we're going to do that inside of the pages directory. So inside of pages directory right here, where we have the blog directory right here, what we're going to do is create a slug.js file. So instead of doing this right now, we can do this. We can come to the blog directory and say testblog.jsx right here, and then we can do let's just quickly create a stateless component and say, hey, I'm a test blog. So let's wrap this inside of our h1 tag so that it's more visible. And hey, I'm a test blog right here. And then we come back to application and /blog/test blog. We should see, hey, I'm a test blog right there. So that's how pages work in Next.js. But remember, we don't want to do this individually for all our posts. We have our posts right here, and we want to be creating dynamic URLs for our pages. So if we want to come to the functions for beginners section, we want to come to /blog/functions of beginners /blogs/solid.js for beginners, and all that and all that and all that. So we're not going to be creating these files one by one. We want to create them dynamically, and they're going to use the same structure, all of them. So instead of testblog.jsx, let's delete this. And right here inside of the blog folder, I want to create a file named slug right here .js. So you start with the left square bracket slug, you close it with the right square bracket, and then .js. So with this, we are going to create dynamic pages for all our blog posts, and let's see how we can do that. Now, to create dynamic paths and dynamic pages for our blog posts, we'll start with the getStaticPath method. So I'm going to give a space right here just so it's more visible, and that's an empty line, by the way. Start getStaticPaths right here. So getStaticPaths, and that's equal to an async function, and we have this. And by the way, we can simply do this with WebStorm. ARF for our function, and we write get static paths right here. So get static paths, and that is for creating arrow function. So let's convert to line 3, and const files is equal to fs.read directory sync. So we want to read dir sync and path.join. So Next.js is going to be expecting this function. So Next.js says that we have this. So you want to create a dynamic paths, dynamic pages. You're going to have to wrap it in the square bracket, remember. So slug.js, this can be named anything. This can be named square bracket page.js, square bracket slug.js, and all that. So but you just have to wrap it in the square bracket and then .js, and you have your dynamic page template right there. So use that for generating your dynamic paths and dynamic pages. So Next.js is going to be expecting this get static paths method, or this get static paths function. And right on line 3, you see that we have files from we have files, and then we're getting that from fs.read_sync. Let's import fs from fs, and back on line 4, we also want to import path. So import path right here from path, and right now we have a path. So files equal to fs.read_sync path.join. I want to get the different files. And to do that, so remember, I want to generate dynamic paths. I want to use the file names to do that. So let's get the directory, just the same thing we did for the app homepage. So let's get the directory and src right here, and then we want post. So base directory /src/post, that should take us to the post directory. We get all the files. And next we want the paths right here, so paths for paths, and this is equal to files right here. So we have the files.map, and we just need the file name right here. So file name, and this is the file name right here, and params. So for params, we have slug file name.split, and the same thing we did before to get the slug, and then we have the first one from the array. Alternatively, we can do this. We can do this file name dot replace, and we want to replace .mdx with nothing, and that's it. So we have just the name without .mdx. And then the next thing we want to do right here, so this right here is for paths. The next thing we want to do is return. For our get static path method, we want to return paths. And now, very important, look at this right here. So inside of our paths, we have params, and then we have slug. Now this slug right here has to be the same value with the name of the file. So slug.js, it means we're expecting slug in the params, so this has to be slug. So that means if we name this id, we need this right here as id. If we name this something else, we need this right here on line 9 as something else. And now we go over to line 13. We are returning paths, and we also want to return fallback as false. So when Next.js sees this, any path that's not generated right here when we build a file, any path that's not generated, if we come back to our app and do /testblog, for example, /blog/testblog, we get a 404 page. So Next.js sees fallback false, and that happens. The next thing we want, now that we have a path, we want to get the props. So we want to get the data from our blog, posts, from each of these blog posts, functions for beginners, solid.js for beginners, just like we did last time. So now we have the paths. We've generated the dynamic paths, the dynamic URLs. Let's get the data for each of these pages. So right here on line 19, we have our ARF for our function, and this is named get static props, and we have async right here, and params. We're getting slug from get static paths, and want to send this over as props to a component. So right here we have our arrow function, and inside of our arrow function we have const again markdown with meta, and that's equal to fs.read file sync, and path.join we have src right here, and we have posts right here. And now we have a slug which we got from get static paths. So we have post right here, and we need another comma. Let's take this to the next line, and we have slug plus .mdx. Remember, we've removed .mdx from the slug in the first place, so we want to add it back so that we can be able to read functions for beginners.mdx and not just functions for beginners. So we have slug as .mdx right there. Next, const data as front matter right here. So we're getting data as front matter and then content, and that's equal to matter and markdown with meta. So we have the front matter. We need to import matter, and let's insert this from query matter. Now we have a front matter and we have a content. For this content, in order to be able to pass it to a React app and render it, we need to serialize it. And for that, we're going to need a package named Next.MDX remote. So let's convert to a terminal and then npm install Next.MDX remote right here. And from this, we can get the serialize method, use that to parse our content so that it can be rendered in our component. Now that we have Next.MDX remote, what we want to do next is import it. So on line 4, we have import and serialize right here. So serialize from Next.MDX remote. So this is Next.MDX remote / serialize. So right here we have serialize imported for us, and next we want to use it. So come back to line 26 and we have this as const mdx source is equal to await and serialize and then content. Now we can send our mdx source over to our component. So this is it. Next we want to return our props. So let's return props right here. And what's inside of our props? We have the front matter, we have the slug, and we have mdx source. All right. Oh, and that's it for get static props and get static paths. What we want to do next is create a component. So we want to create a post page component. And on line 6, what we want to do is create a post page component. So that's post page right here, and that's equal to, so we have a front matter. So we want to get these props, but before that, let's just wrap it up with creating the component so we don't get confused. And inside of for our props right here, we have a front matter, remember. So front matter, and from front matter we want to get title instead of doing front matter.title, front matter.date and all that. So let's just get it from here right now. And finally we need mdx source. So this is what's inside of our post page. So each of our post functions for beginners, for example, mdx source, this is what's inside of it. Now back to slug.js, want to return our JSX code right here. And for our JSX, we have div right here with class name of empty-4, and we have h1 tag right here. This is for the title. And right here we can have our mdx source. But remember, you come back to the functions.beginner.mdx file. So we have this, the syntax highlighter component. So how do we get that? How do we use this? Back to the slug.js file, we want to install and import the syntax highlighter component. So come back to the terminal and then npm install right here, and this should be React syntax highlighter. So you install the React syntax highlighter package, and then we can go ahead and import it on line 5. So that should be import syntax highlighter, lightter, from React syntax highlighter right here. So that's syntax highlighter. So this is the syntax highlighter component right here. And now to be able to use the syntax highlighter component, we need the mdx remote component, still from Next.MDX remote. So we have the title right here. We have mdx remote. Is this getting automatically imported? No, we need to import this. So right here on line 4, we create a new line, and then we have import mdx remote right here. So mdx remote from Next.MDX remote, and that's it. So mdx remote. Now we need to pass the mdx source right here. So let's spread that mdx source, and then for components, so these are the different components we need in the application. So for components, we want the syntax highlighter, but this is not all the components we used inside of our mdx file. So remember, in our mdx file we have the syntax highlighter, and we also have the button component. So there's a button component right here, and we're going to create that in a bit. But in order to make this easier for us, let's just declare a component variable and then const components right here. And for components right here, that's equal to the syntax highlighter component which we imported. And then when we create our button component, we're going to add it here. So this is going to be button right here, and then syntax highlighter. But for now, we have just syntax highlighter, and inside of components, inside of the components prop, we're going to pass component. And that's it for our next MDX remote component. Now that we have that, the next thing we want to do is export. We're going to export the get static path method. We'll export the get static props method, and we're also going to export post page. So let's do that right here. So export right here, and we have get static props, we have get static paths, and export default post page. So this is post page right here. Now if you come back to the index.js file for our home page, you see that we declared get static prop with the export keyword, so we don't need to export it again on line 60. Now we can do the same thing in the slug.js file, but just so that you see the many ways we can achieve this. So we can have export const get static props instead of doing this right here, and same thing for get static paths. But alternatively, you can do this right here on line 50. And that's it for our exports. Now back to our post page components. You can see that we're not using the date prop. I thought we were going to use that, but since we're not using that, let's just have front matter right here. And that's just going to make our code look simpler, easier to understand. And instead of title, we have front matter.title. But if it was more than one value, then that's recommended. You bring them all out and just title. But since we just have front matter.title in our blog post, we have this. I showed you that one earlier so that you can do it when you need you're going to need dates, and you're going to need everything you want to get from get static prop, and you can go with that method. Alternatively, you can also come here and then the structure, so you can do const title right here, and that's equal to front matter. So that's for that. The next thing we want to do is create a button component. Remember, we still need this button component right here for our MDX files. So back to projects, want to convert to the components directory, new file, and button right here, the JSX. Let's make sure that that's what it's named. So this is button, right? So we have button right here, the JSX, and this is going to be a simple component. We need RSC to create a component, and let's simply have this right here. So we have button right here, and for class name, we have btn primary, and what else? We need an on-click event listener. So on-click right here, and that's event.target.inner text is equal to, hey, you clicked me. So you clicked me right here, and the exclamation mark. What next? We need to close our button tag, and we have text right here. So I'm gonna take this over here, line 9. We have text. Where are we getting text from? Now, where are we getting text from? We're getting text from the prop right here on line 34. You can see this inside of the functions for beginners.mdx file, text as click me. So we want text as prop also, and this is text, and that's it right here. We have a button tag. Now we can come back to the slug.js file and add the button tag right here. So before syntax highlighter, let's have the button tag. So one button tag right here and syntax highlighter. We also need to import this button tag, and that's done for us. Now let's go back to the browser and see what we have. So back to the browser, we hit the functions for beginners blog post, and we have an error message right here: cannot convert undefined or null to object. So what's the problem? So let's convert to the slug.js file, and I want to look closely on line 20. We have get static paths right here. First of all, this should be an async function. And right here on line 23, you see WebStorm is telling us that there's something wrong with params and with slug. That's because we need to wrap the return value for this function in parentheses. And we have this right here, so file name. And now that that's fixed, let's see if that fixes an error also. Look at that. And that fixes our error message also. And it is done by your functions for beginners. This is a blog post about functions. We'll learn what functions are, how to write functions, and how to use them. So this is a blog post right here. Back to Ebenezer done. You click on any of them, and look at that. This is clicking. This is fast, right? There's no load time, and this is not because it's on localhost. This is because this you're gonna get the same experience when you push this over to a server and you're accessing it through the internet. You're going to get the same experience of clicking and just seeing your page. And remember, like I explained, that's because Next.js prefetches all the link tags. So click on functions for beginners, and we have this right here. Let's try out. Look, you can already see our syntax highlighter component is functioning, it's working. And let's try out the button. So here I'm using the component inside my Markdown file. Click me, And look at that, you clicked me. All right, and that's it. We've successfully built a blog with Next.js and MDX. Remember, this shouldn't be Ebenezer Don. That's my name. This should be your own name. And give me more styling. We use Bootstrap to do quick styling, but add your CSS, add your SCSS. Give me more styling. Make this look really good. It shouldn't look close to what we've done here right now. Make it look really good. Give us a good bio page. Give us good post pages. You can add like dark theme and all that and all that and all that. And that's basically it. This is how you can create a blog with Next.js and MDX. This is a good starter for anyone who wants to work with Next.js. This is a good overview of Next.js and MDX. And that's it. Got any question? Ask me in the comment section below. Got any comment? Say it in the comment section below. See you in my next video. Bye.